Welcome back to Conquering Chaos, everybody, a mom's guide to self-care and sanity. I'm your host, Sydney Crow, and today we have Abby Sangmeister from New Jersey. I'm so excited that Abby's here today. She is a coach and therapist. She has a 17-month-old daughter she's already described as very determined. And we are going to be chatting a lot about how to redirect that energy that she's facing with her daughter, self-regulation, and talk more about her free virtual group for ambitious moms. So welcome, Abby.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Thanks for being here. It's so great to connect with fellow moms. Now, you described yourself as a single mom by choice. Why don't we dive into that? Because I feel like that's a very powerful story that you're able to share with the listeners.
Yes, and I love sharing about it. So at 40, I woke up and was like, I've always wanted to be a mom, and I never found the right guy. And so I actually Googled and searched online and figured out single mom by choice was the terminology. And I decided to use IVF and a donor to create my daughter and have a baby of my own at 41.
Wow. What an empowering story. And you shared with me that even though you were going through IVF, the highest chance that you were going to be, that the doctor said that you would be able to have a daughter was 11%.
Yeah. So the first round, which for a moment I was really discouraged because I knew I couldn't afford to do future rounds. It was like one round, that would be it. And I still wanted to take the chance because I was like, if I never try, I will never know.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a roller coaster ride for doing IVF. And there's so many women out there that go through it for various reasons. But I definitely think it is worth the risk.
Hmm. Well, I mean, you have a loving, healthy daughter to show for it, so
Hmm.
absolutely worth the risk. And I mean, like you mentioned, that women go through it for various reasons. And I think there almost is a bit of shame around that connotation, right? You were sharing with me about a personal story where a woman came up and was just kind of whispering it to you because she didn't know if it was the appropriate thing to talk about out in public, or a lot of women can go through it and maybe still have loss involved with it. So why don't you talk about that? Because I think that that's a really empowering piece for women to feel strength in their determination and decision.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many ways, when someone has fertility challenges, like there's different paths to take. There's IUI, there's IVF, there's different medications, there's different doctors with different viewpoints on that. There's whether you're using donor sperm or donor eggs. And I've noticed the more that I started sharing about it, because I was hesitant in bringing it up and what, this journey that I was going to be on. And so many women who, even have teenagers, they were like, would message me, friends of mine, I had no idea. And they'd be like, I went through IVF, this many years ago, or this is why we had to do IVF. And when I was talking at my fertility clinic, it's like 1 in 6 women has fertility challenges. It's huge. It's a huge population of women.
Yeah, especially in our demographic because or our age group, right? Because I mean, when I was younger, it was like as soon as you thought about being sexually active or if you had bad periods, it was birth control.
Hmm.
Well, birth control is leading to a lot of these fertility challenges down the road. And now there's a lot of knowledge and education around alternative ways to not get pregnant,
Yeah.
alternative ways to manage your bad periods and cramps and things like that. And I think that that plays a huge role in it because right from the get-go, we were taught, oh, let's just put a pill on it, right? Or,
Right.
oh, let's just like, we don't really talk about this. And to
Yeah.
have that statistic of 1 in 6 women that are struggling with that today, I mean, that is a massive, massive number of the population that are
Hmm.
struggling. So to bring these conversations to the forefront, I think is really important so that women feel less alone in it.
Hmm. Right. And like there's so many reasons that you could have infertility. And the other piece is we don't talk about men's health either. And so I have a background in studying nutrition, and part of our course was talking about like men's health, infertility, and no one talks about that. It's like kind of all put upon, I still feel like, on the woman, like, oh, what does she need to do to get healthy? And then the partner isn't brought in until like later on, but let's look at the whole family's health and what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that even goes further into the mindset of like when you do become a mom, a lot of that weight and mental load is on the moms. So, what would you say would be your biggest piece of advice to moms out there in terms of like changing this conversation around it?
I think that's it, having a conversation. We get together so often and have these like superficial conversations. And so encourage yourself to just be the icebreaker in your group and bring something up. It could be something personal, it could be something maybe that you read an article about or saw a TikTok or something on Instagram. It's a good icebreaker and see where that goes because there are, as being a therapist and coach too, clients come to me and they're like, "Oh, I've been thinking about like this challenge or issue." And I'm the only one. I'm like, "You're my client last week was talking about the same thing." And I wish like I could play matchmaker sometimes with my clients and say, you're not the only one. So I
Yeah.
think a lot of times we think or we don't know other people going through that. So putting it out there in a way that feels comfortable to you and bring it up. So that way the conversation can start happening.
Yeah. I mean, and like you said, it's interesting if we are just having these little sidebar conversations, and in your case, it's therapy, so they are meant to be private. But
Mm-hmm.
like if you have a group of friends and you can get together and share this as a whole in the group so that it's not, maybe this person shared a IVF or their fertility struggles with
Mm-hmm.
me, let's say, and then they don't know how they're like, oh, well, I have somebody else that has shared the same journey, but
Mm-hmm.
because it's not in a group or a setting where I feel comfortable sharing each other's story, I can't connect them. So making sure that we are like connectors in our
Mm-hmm.
society and just saying like, hey, I know somebody's going through this. Can I share your story? Can I connect you? Maybe there's some
Yeah.
support there for you, right? And I think that's where this group that you have is so powerful. So if you want to share a little bit about your virtual group for ambitious moms, I love the title.
Yeah. So the Ambitious Mamas Collective came together as someone who like I'm part of Facebook groups and other groups. And I was like, where do I feel like this connection and where do I connect with all of these different groups? And as someone who, has always been like career driven, high achieving in lots of areas of my life, not just my career, and balancing being a mom, I was like, who is there to talk to and like really elevate and lift each other up? Like, I want to talk about your wins and also like the struggles that you've gone through. Let's like talk about them and talk about, how each of us have kind of gone through it in a way that feels like supportive and nourishing and that we can like all kind of thrive together. And also this piece of like connecting moms on like a career kind of networking too, if people want to. The other piece is I like to start each session with a question or an affirmation or a journal prompt, something, because it's a great thing for us to do is to reflect. But as moms and working and taking care of the household, when do we really sit down? So this is like the opportunity that I give everyone to sit for a few moments and then to kind of bring those conversations together. People don't have to share if they don't want to, they can share if they want. And it just kind of gets the conversation going and creating more deep connections.
I love that so much. And I can't wait to be a part of that group myself. But you are a fairly new mom. Your daughter is now 17 months old. And
Mhm.
you've talked a lot about the chaos that kind of came along with that, juggling your business. You've been very ambitious through your career and then have now brought life into the world. How do you find balance with all of that?
It's hard because I really thought it would be different. I thought I would have all this energy, not energy is the right word. I was like, oh, well, I'm taking postpartum time off. When she's napping, I can do all of this. And none of that happened. We still to this day contact nap or car naps or sometimes stroller naps, but we're not liking the stroller so much. I love it. She is someone who is very attached to me and I love our time together, but it also means it's tough to work on business. She could know the moment I open my laptop. Like she could be busy somewhere else, like someone else could be watching her and she like just senses it and then she's like, "Mom," which like I also love. So it's a little bit of adjusting to saying like, okay, now this is the season of life that I'm in
Mhm.
where I thought I wanted to grow my business and my career. Some of that I'm just putting to the side, and that's okay because I know she'll be in school in a blink of an eye. And now it's like spending time with her. But at the same time, there are those moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, I have this content, this blog post, this Instagram, and I'm spending time with her, and I'm like starting to be like, oh my gosh, I need to do this, and that struggle in my brain. And now I'm not paying attention to her, which she absolutely picks up on every emotion. Now she's getting, fussy, a little bit wound up. And I'm like, just hold on a minute. Mommy had this great idea. Let me write it down, or I got to get this post out. And so that's been like the biggest struggle. And so learning how to kind of let go of some of those type A perfectionist qualities within my business too. Like Instagram, the best time to post is at this time. I'm like, no, I'll just post whenever I
Yep.
get to.
Yep.
Oh, I
Absolutely.
didn't do any stories today. Oh no. And just, but it does still come up of, and like kind of like, how do you calm yourself down in that moment too, as your kid is now feeling your emotion and they're taking on that emotion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that comes a lot to the redirecting her energy piece that we were
Mhm.
talking about earlier, right? Learning how to handle that fire, I think is a nice way to put
Mhm.
it, because my daughters are both very strong-willed themselves. And redirecting that in a way that doesn't stifle it, but
Mhm.
also allows you a little bit of freedom to get things done on your plate. And I think that comes down to a lot of the self-regulation that you've been talking about.
Yeah. And so part of that is there sometimes is not any time for me to self regulate without her. So I've been finding ways that I can do that with her. And sometimes that's like putting on dance music and picking her up. And it could be a fast song and we dance to her, or it's a slow song and I'm just holding her. And the weight of her is grounding me, and our connection is grounding both of us. And we just take that pause. Like going out for walks is great. And just knowing like this is what the walk is going to look like. Okay, we're not getting in the stroller today. That's okay.
Yeah.
I have become highly addicted to her mega blocks. Every night I'm like, it's mega block time. And she, like she just tears them all apart. But I sit there and I'm like, we're going to put the colors together. We're going to like whatever feels good in my brain. And in a way, it's kind of mindless for me, but that like regulates, that brings me down after like a evening of working and getting dinner done. And I'm like, okay, this is like relaxing to me. So kind of trying to find those things that she enjoys doing, but also regulates myself.
Yeah. Puzzles were a big piece in our household when my kids
Mhm.
were, that 3, 4 stage, which she'll be getting to soon enough. We did a ton of puzzles. Like I could
Yeah.
sit down and it's just like staring at a picture, right? Putting those pieces
Mhm.
together, being able to turn off our minds, because that's a big piece for type A personalities, overachievers, as you self-described. I mean, I fall into that category myself. And it's like when you're running a business and a household simultaneously, it is really hard to have an off switch. And so finding some sort of activity that can help you calm down and co-regulate, if whether it's self-regulate or co-regulate with your
Mhm.
kids, I mean, it's the same thing. My oldest, she needs co-regulation. And so a lot of times when I can feel her energy that's starting to trigger me, it's like I just get on her level, we do a hug, or we'll go forehead to forehead. And it's just like helping her breathe through it. Same way
Mhm.
the weight of your daughter, helping her, having
Mhm.
her there, right? That co-regulation piece. It's a beautiful thing. And I love that piece. And I hope that I mean, eventually I know it'll go away, but I hope it doesn't go away anytime soon.
Right, right. And you're like, hold, and you're modeling something so help. And I think that's the other piece of being mindful and doing it with them is you're modeling options for them as they get older and grow.
Yeah,
And
which
I
is,
bet she will still want those cuddles, your daughter. She's
I
still
hope
gonna come. She's gonna be like 40 and be like, Mom. Yeah.
I hope so. I hope so. Well, is there any last piece of advice that you'd love to give the listeners, whether it's in terms of your single motherhood journey or your business out there for the listeners?
I think the biggest thing is giving yourself permission. We don't do it quite enough to take a break, to ask for help, to tell people how we're feeling and that we have permission. We give it to other people so often, but I want you to think of like how can I give myself permission and maybe even put like a reminder in your calendar that reoccurs, whether it's every week or every month. Like I give myself permission to go get a coffee by myself, like go to bed early, not, check my emails for a day. So I think we have to remember that we can have permission to take time for ourselves.
Yeah, well, I think we're changing the narrative around what self-care is. A lot of people
Mhm.
think self-care needs to be like going to the spa or going to the
Yeah.
store and buying themselves something, which it can be, but also not checking my email for a day would be such a great mind rest, right?
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for being here today, Abby. And thank you guys for tuning into today's episode where we help you conquer the chaos one day at a time.